it's not, it's a strangely named app. It's more concordance than Discord. I remember our initial newsletter had online community in Discord, and didn't realize till afterwards. But the link is on the website, and on that Discord server, we have a group of people holding the Upasaka group who are holding 5 precepts and generally keeping this posted today. And so just to encourage people to find a resource there if you're interested. And additionally, on that server, you'll be able to find people to do confession with. And that's something that the monastics do every 2 weeks. Just take a chance with a trusted spiritual friend to kind of acknowledge those things, places where you slipped, and the places you want to do better in the future. And it's a very powerful practice. So if you're interested, just join that, and all the resources and confession formula in Pali is online. So just want to encourage people to take advantage. For those who want, you are welcome to take the 5 precepts and 3 refuges. The chant can be found on page 126 of the chanting book. The link to the chanting book, if you're joining on Zoom, is in the chat. And if you're on YouTube, it should be in the show description. And these precepts, the Buddha spoke about not as directives from a supreme deity, but rather he called them mahadana, in that they're great gifts. To hold these precepts is to hold an ethic of harmlessness towards those around us. So he said that through these precepts, we give the gift of fearlessness to those around us. And it's really a foundation for the beautiful community, which we're trying to create, a community where you can really have faith that people will not lie, that people will not gossip behind one another's back, that this is genuinely a safe space. And so the precepts are beautiful in that. They're a very helpful prerequisite for deep meditation. And so those who are interested can take them, but no pressure. Juanita will do the invitation for the precepts. Others can follow along. And page 126 is the invitation.
Ma yang phante tisaranena saha pancha sila niyajama tutiyampi ma yang phante tisaranena saha pancha sila niyajama tatiyampi ma yang phante tisaranena saha pancha sila niyajama.
So turn to page 128 and just repeat after me. We'll do the refuges in Pali and then the precepts in Pali and English. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
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 Buddhaṃ saranam gacchami.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranam gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranam gacchami.
Tutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranam gacchami.
Tutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisarana kamanang nititang. And you say ama
Ama
pante.
bhante.
Pangati pata veramani sikaparang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from the life of any living creature.
Adinadana veramani sikaparang samadhiyami.
Atinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumichachara veramani sikaparang samadhiyami.
Kame sumisa jarawe ramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada veramani sikaparang samadhiyami.
Musawata veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Surameraya majapamaratana veramani sikaparang samadhiyami.
Suraya mera shapama tatana veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to the carelessness.
And just I say this. Imani pancha sikaparani silena sugating silena boga sampara, silena nibuting tasama silang visodaye. These are the 5 precepts. Virtue is the source of happiness. Virtue is the source of true wealth. The virtue is the source of peacefulness. Therefore, let virtue be purified.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So beautiful intention, everyone, to keep those. The Buddha said those are the roots of our humanity. And I like to tell the story of Ajahn Amaro trying to keep the first precept and getting a potted flower plant in his kuti and it getting infested with aphids and him suffering for a few weeks until he decided to stop keeping a potted plant and to start keeping an aphid farm. So I really like that. And the refuges, externally, these are refuges in the historical Buddha, the teaching as it's come down to us, and the enlightened Sangha. But internally, they can really be looked at as objects of recollection, the Buddha being the quality and potential for awakening, the enlightened awareness, the Dhamma as the truth of how the world and conditionality works, and the Sangha being what happens when that enlightened mind knows truth embodied in a human being. So that's a way of holding it. So we'll meditate together. Allow your spine to be drawn upwards as if a string were attached to the crown of your head and just pulled up, aligning all your vertebrae along its vertical axis. Sitting upright. And allowing your eyes and forehead to soften any tension. Soften the jaw, the tongue, the belly. And then take 3 breaths as deeply as you can, deep into your belly. Hold for a second and then release through the nose as slowly as you're able. And do that 3 times. Now just allow the breathing to center you. Establishing a orientation of friendliness towards the meditation and playfulness. Smiling gently on the inside of the mouth. And you're welcome to pursue whatever meditation you feel you want to. But those who are inclined can follow this very simple guided meditation that Jason Bartlett came up with called the Field of Welcome. And what it entails is whenever the mind alights on any object, instead of pursuing that object or resting, just let it go with a little wave. Say, welcome, and then let it go. Welcome. A bit like you're at a party, engaged in conversation. You see someone walking through the door, and you just give them a little smile and a wave. Welcome. You'll catch up later. Let them walk on. It can seem quite busy at first, but just give it a try. Each time something rises into awareness, just welcome and let it go. After doing this for a time, you may start to notice almost a field of welcome, a field of bright, loving kindness kind of surrounding you. You can rest in that, just allowing each new object that comes to be greeted with friendliness and then just let go. You'll catch up later. Feel free to continue this meditation as long as is helpful, and we'll sit together for some time. Now bring awareness down to the heart, not the physical heart, but the center of the chest near the heart. And allow that glow of friendliness to grow. Metta. And one skillful means of spreading metta to oneself is imagine you're up in your head looking down at the heart and spread metta to it. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be filled with loving kindness. You can place your right hand over that space as well if you want to amplify the effect. And take a second to spread that goodwill to your body, which tries so hard to keep up, failing sometimes, and just spread metta to it. Gratitude for what it tries to do for us. And then release that field of loving kindness out into the world in all directions, encompassing all beings. May all beings be free from suffering, free from fear, filled with loving kindness.
Roma Jaloka Tipati Sahampati Kat An Jalian Tiwarang Ayajata Santi Dasanta Parashaka Shatika se tu dhammang anugam pimang pachang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. People can feel free to continue meditating. In our tradition, listening to a talk and meditation are one and the same. So there's a sutta about the 5 hindrances called the Sangaravo Sutta in the Connected Discourses. Imagine, Brahman, there was a bowl of water filled with lac, turmeric, indigo, or crimson dye, so that one looking into that bowl could not see their face clearly. Even so, when one dwells with a mind overcome with kamachanda, sensual desire, then one cannot see clearly what is for what one's own benefit and others' benefit, and even sacred words long known to one are unclear. Imagine, Brahman, a bowl of water boiling over fire, bubbling, so that one could not see the reflection of one's face clearly. Even so, when one dwells with a mind overcome with ill will, vyapada, one cannot see clearly what's for one's own benefit or for others, and even sacred words long known to one are unclear. Imagine, Brahman, a bowl of water overgrown with algae and water plants, so that one could not see one's face clearly. Even so, when one dwells with a mind overcome by sloth and torpor, tinamita, one cannot see clearly what's for one's own or others' benefit, and sacred words long known to one are unclear. Imagine, Brahman, a bowl of water ruffled by the wind so that it eddied and stirred, and one could not see one's face clearly. Even so, when one dwells with a mind overcome by restlessness and remorse, uddhacca kukucha, one cannot see clearly what's for one's own or others' benefit, and sacred words long known to one are unclear. Imagine, Brahman, a bowl of water, stirred up, muddied, set in a dark place, so that one could not see one's face clearly. Even so, when one dwells with a mind overcome by skeptical doubt, vichikiccha, one cannot see clearly what's for one's own benefit or others, and sacred words long known to one are unclear. Imagine, Brahman, a bowl of clear water set in the open, still, so that one looking into it could see clearly one's face. Even so, when one dwells with a mind free of sensual desire, of ill will, of sloth and torpor, of restlessness and remorse, of skeptical doubt, then one can see clearly what's for one's own benefit and the benefit of others, and sacred words, even just learned, are clear. I love those 5 analogies. And last week, we spoke about the radiant mind, the fact that the Buddha said the mind is luminous, it is only tainted by passing defilements, pabasarang chittang, radiant mind, akandukehi kilesehi, visiting defilements. And the idea that the more you strip away the accumulation and crust which has grown on our hearts over years and lifetimes, the more you come to a simple, clean, radiant heart. And it could be said that maybe 70% of the practice in the beginning is just watching the chitta grow brighter and brighter. But these visiting defilements are real. And yet the enlightened mind is able to not take them up. There's the story of a palm reader coming up to Ajahn Chah, the forefather of our lineage, and asking to read his palm. And he took Ajahn Chah's palm in his hand and he sort of squinted and furrowed his brow. And he said, "Wow, you have a lot of anger." And Ajahn Chah said, "I have it, but I don't pick it up. Me da mai ao." And this idea that even though an enlightened being might, anger might be the wrong word, but there might be not liking a certain thing or, a naturally proclivity towards this and that. Maybe they're tired at times. There's no grasping or feeding off of those unwholesome, unskillful states. And yet, most of us do pick up the anger. We do pick up the sensual desire. We do pick up the sloth and torpor, the skeptical doubt, the restlessness and remorse. Jack Kornfield has a saying where he says, if you can exist, something like, if you can exist happily with those in your life every day, if you can eat contentedly whatever's put in front of you, if you can sleep without a pill or a drink every night, if you can watch your neighbors go off to a fun vacation without jealousy, then you're probably a dog. So understanding that our bar is where we are. We're half demon, half animal. Well, we're half animal and half angel. And acknowledging that both are at play. And the Buddhist word for goodness, at least in one context, is kusala, which means skillful. And etymologically, it's related to the word for kusa grass. And kusa grass is a very sharp grass in India. And to pick it, you have to be very skillful to not cut yourself. And so kusala is our skill in practice. I referenced the quote last week that if you want to teach people to sail, don't teach them to build the ship, but teach them to love the ocean. But actually, that in one of the profound strengths of this lineage and teaching is its practicality of skill. How do we build the ship? And though the Buddha spoke of root defilements in the heart, greed, hatred, and delusion, the 5 practical manifestations of those that he said kept us from calm day in and day out, that obscured the mind from settling into radiance, are the 5 hindrances. These are the guests that we meet when we sit down and close our eyes. These are the bowls of water that we find ourselves staring and squinting at, trying to see our face. So these also are the core of the 4th foundation of mindfulness. When you take extant versions and compare them, the core teachings that seem to have been at the heart of that foundation of mindfulness are the 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of awakening, these dark and bright mental qualities that we learn to balance and learn how to abandon the hindrances. So these are a practical skill. Someone once asked Ajahn Chah, when I'm meditating and my mind strays from its object, how do I know whether to investigate that object further or just to return to that distraction further, or just to return to my main meditation object. And Longpo Cha said, it's like you live in a little village and you walk past these people on the street, and maybe it's a distraction comes up, or an old argument you've had, or a craving you know well, or a mind state. And it's someone you've seen 1,000 times walking down the street. And in which case it's fine just to give them a little wave and walk on. You just acknowledge, know it, and then return to your object of meditation. But maybe it's a new character on the street, or maybe it's looking especially deranged, or maybe it grabs onto your arm and won't let you go. And in those cases, when the fantasy keeps coming up, when you feel the anger take up residence in your body, when you can't return to the breath or the metta meditation, then it's okay to turn to that object and either apply an antidote, which we'll discuss, or investigate, learn the causality behind the hindrance. What's causing it? Where's this anger coming from? Where's this greed originating in? And 3 really useful ways of walking down this street of our day-to-day lives and minds, and encountering such passing defilements, the visiting defilements, the hindrances. One that gets not as much attention as it should and deserves to be held up again and again is just noting. Nyanaponika said that, he's a famous monk, said that one of the functions of mindfulness is to put things in order by naming them. And just the act of naming a hindrance does so much. It's known. It's like children playing under the staircase in the dark. And when the parent opens up the door and turns on the light and just stares at them, things are a lot less fun for those kids and they stop playing. So often, and this is a really powerful skill in daily life, can you just say anger, anger, greed, doubt, sloth, tiredness, restlessness? And just that act of naming it settles the mind. It lets you put things into perspective. It lets you make it into an object rather than something you're identified with. So noting practice is very powerful. That's just like passing someone on the street and you say, hi, John, how are you doing? And then you just keep walking. The other means that's very useful is the Buddha spoke about the gratification pentad, actually, sometimes triad and sometimes pentad. And that's the idea that to let go of any state, any unwholesome mental quality, you should understand its arising, its ceasing, its attraction, its drawback, and its escape. So first, just noticing how these hindrances arise in daily life and meditation. What stirs up greed for you? What brings anger into being? And can you avoid those things? Maybe there's a particular kind of news cycle that really gets you. Can you steer away from that? Maybe there's a certain food that really stirs you up. Can you steer away from that? Maybe there's times of day when you're more tired than others. Can you learn to meditate at different points or put on a Dharma talk? Just the simple fact of what is the cause and ground for these states. But then also to see in each of these defilements instances, the drawback, the attraction, and the escape. So with greed, kamachanda, sensual desire, the attraction is obvious. There's a flush to desire. But what's the drawback? Can you, in a meditation, when the fantasy comes up of the movie or the addiction or the whatever it is you're looking forward to, can you really consider what's the drawback of this? How soon, how many seconds does that mouthful of food last before it disappears? before it's nothing else, or before that experience is gone. Um, can you look at the drawback in terms of just the suffering of obsessing about a sensual pleasure? The Buddha said that fixation on sensual pleasures is our proclivity towards them, meaning that we don't really care about the pizza. What we care about is fantasizing about the pizza. And to notice that, there's a certain way your mind kind of gnaws at that bone. And the Buddha uses that analogy. A dog gnawing at a sensual desires are like a dog gnawing at a stripped bone. And really, all the dog is tasting is its own saliva. You know, that's what we are kind of getting by on. And you know those fantasies you've been through 100 times. And really, at this point, it's just your own saliva. And can you really ask yourself, like, would I pay $5 to see this movie again? And to notice also that to recollect death when sensual desire comes into meditation. How precious is this moment? How long do we really have? We don't know. And do you really want to waste another 10 minutes of the meditation thinking about the next Marvel Cinematic Universe movie or the last one? You know, how precious is this moment and what do you want to use it for? And that can be as simple as a long recollection of the fact that you will die, or a very quick phrase, you will die. Now is all you have. Now is all you have. And just let that sword of wisdom cut off the desire, the sensual desire. You can think about what the food will become in about 10 hours. My mom was once cooking at Servasti Abbey for the nuns there and was getting really concerned about getting the right dish for them. And one of the nuns just came up and she said, Sarah, in 10 minutes, this is all just going to be crap anyways. And it was such a relief, you know, and it sounds a little bit distasteful, but it's just the full picture. Like, how obsessed do we really have to be about this particular dish when in a second, just chew it up and spit it back onto your plate and see how attractive it is. It's that distance from being not attractive. And if you're really intent on this practice, you can actually, after you've kind of used the toilet, just take a look. Take a look. It's not that crazy. You're just seeing truth. That's all. Another thing is just to use the Four Noble Truths and label dukkha, dukkha, label suffering, suffering. When you've obsessed about the donut or the hit of weed or whatever it is, again and again, and you just can't rip your mind from it, can you see the hot burning sensation of suffering and just label kamachanda, sensual desire, for what it is? It's suffering. The Buddha said that even as a leper would gain a measure of satisfaction from picking off his scabs over a fire. Apparently that is something lepers did, I guess. But we all know that kind of compulsive satisfaction of picking a scab. The Buddha compared that to sensual desire. You pick the scab again and again. And he compared sensual desire to going into debt. And because of the hedonic treadmill, because the next serotonin burst from the sensual stimulus will never be as good as the initial one, we always find we're taking out new debts to pay off the old. We're always giving our hearts to things that will end. So there's something to be said for seeing the drawback in all these ways and letting go of them through that. And cultivating an internal source of pleasure. You have to let that flush of sensual desire die down, let it move through the body. And sometimes there's a moment of dryness and desolation after that, because you have to let that pattern fade. But then if you hold still through that, if you cultivate skill in meditation and these internal well springs of non-sensual happiness, like loving kindness, a sense of genuine self-worth from metta, from morality, giving, community, love, then instead of feeding off of the world, you find pleasure in giving to the world and blessing it. And that's the new health food. You replace that kind of binging on Cheetos for, I don't know where that analogy goes from there, but you stop eating Cheetos, um, or at least the flaming hot Cheetos, and then switch to normal or something. So it's not, all these hindrances are understandable. There's no reason to feel great guilt over them, but you don't, there's work to be done. And we've spent enough time circling around the same old things. And where has it gotten us? The next hindrance is ill will, which the Buddha compared to the boiling bowl of water or a sickness. And the drawback of ill will is easy to see. It's painful. It's a sickness. It weakens the body, makes one unwilling to eat, etc. But what's the attraction? Why do we keep coming back to it? And to note that flush of self-righteous sense of solidity in the self. There's no drug almost as seductive as self-righteous anger. And once again, in 2024's election cycle, let's keep that in mind. But to notice that the Buddha spoke about kama tanha, craving for sensuality, but he also spoke about bhava tanha, craving to become. And we like the feeling of being solid, of knowing where we are and that we're right and powerful. And anger gives that sense of flush. But in the Buddha's words, anger with its honeyed tip and poisoned root, it's like spreading honey on a blade of a knife. You know the sense of diving into it, and you know the pain that comes afterwards. So yes, you can just name anger, but you can also apply the antidote of loving kindness. Or you can investigate back, what is it about a situation or a person that's bringing up aversion in you? Often the things we're most averse to are the things that are inside ourselves that we see in others. What is it that we're projecting? And can we also recollect that the people in our lives who most irritate us are often the only place where we really have the chance to practice goodwill and patience? We know we need to come to a place where we can exist in the same country as a person who has a different opinion than us. And the only way we're going to do that is by existing in a country where other people have different opinions than us. So it's quite a gift that we exist in a country where people have different opinions than us, and a family. And what a gift that we get to practice, because we know we have to overcome that barrier at some point. So whenever you're at the dinner table with those relatives that are being especially difficult, or encountering the coworker that doesn't agree with you, can you really bow to them? Maybe not in person, although you could try, but can you really bow to them and just say, thank you for giving me a chance to move through this essential aspect of my practice? We have a member here who designated their teddy bear as Vladimir Putin for a whole year and had it on the next shrine, the second level of their shrine shelf. Doesn't have to be on the top level, but you can put someone there. The next hindrance the Buddha spoke about is tinamita, sloth and drowsiness, algae, or the Buddha compared it to a dungeon. And just this is common. And the Buddha, in one sutta, speaks to Mahamoggallana, one of the most prominent disciples, who's nodding off, which is comforting because this is the second most prominent disciple before he was an arahant, and he also nodded off. So you're in good company. And he's nodding off, and suddenly the Buddha appears, manifests out of nowhere, which would definitely wake you up. And he says, Mahamoggallana, are you nodding? And Moggallana says, yes, Lord. And he says, whatever object you are attending to while nodding off, turn attention to something else. And by that means drowsiness may be dispelled. So replacing one object with another. The breath is very calming. So if you're nodding off, can you replace that with the sound of silence, or the perception of light, or loving kindness, or an active body scan? Can you walk meditation? Can you open the eyes just a little bit? or you can place a rock or some object between your thumbs in a mudra, and when it drops, you'll know that you've slipped off. Ajahn Brahm has a story that when he was at a monastery with Longpo Cha, they made all the monks put candle matchboxes on their heads so that if they nodded off, the matchbox would fall on the floor and wake them up. And Ajahn Brahm said he woke up when he figured out that he could use a piece of gum to stick it to his head. And then one day he found himself suddenly woken up by a really loud noise, and he realized it was the sound of his head hitting the floor. so don't do that. The Buddha then says, if that doesn't work, recollect the Dharma as you have heard and memorized it. And by this means, your drowsiness may be dispelled. So can you memorize a verse of Dhamma or teachings you've heard? If you haven't memorized the first turning of the wheel of Dhamma, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, there's nothing more worth memorizing in the world. The Bhikkhu Bodhi says those are the most profound words ever uttered by a human being. Granted, we're biased, we're monks, but I think it's true. If that doesn't work, Moggallana, recite out loud the Dhamma as you have heard and memorized it. So to say it out loud, to chant, or if you know one chant, like the loving kindness chant, the Karaniya Metta Sutta, these are in the chanting books, just chant that out loud. If that doesn't work, stand up and look. Stand and look to the perception of light. So can you bring to mind the perception of daytime? And then he says, if that doesn't work, stand and establishing a path, walk back and forth. So this is walking meditation. And if that doesn't work, lie down mindfully on your right side in lion's posture, determined to get just enough rest and to wake up mindfully. So I find actually that's really helpful. Is if you're really drowsy, take a 4-minute power nap. Just set your alarm for 4 minutes and let yourself lie down. And sometimes your mind will kind of bounce down and up, and you'll find yourself quite calm. And I would add cold showers to this. The Buddha didn't say that, but I think it's really helpful. Cold water will wake you up. But to notice also sometimes, because of scale invariance, each of these patterns are ones that you can see in your meditation, but you'll also often find scale invariance is the feature of a chaotic system where a pattern will repeat on a microcosmic level and a macrocosmic level, the small and the wide. So you might notice that these same patterns are the ones that dominate your lives. And just as you lean into sloth and torpor in a meditation, maybe you find that the way you deal with your struggling marriage is just by tuning out. Or maybe with sensual desire, you find that the way that you, just as you distract yourself from a boring meditation with a thought of the next meal, maybe you're always thinking of the next vacation to keep yourself from looking at how difficult and unpleasant your job is right now. Make those connections and understand these hindrances are not trifling things. These dominate our lives. They have us in their clutches. And if we can gain understanding of them and antidotes to them on the cushion, then we soften the pattern and dispel it in the wider scope of our lives as a whole. The fourth hindrance, uddhacca kukucca, which is very fun to say, is restlessness and remorse. Remorse, regret over the past. Anxiety and restlessness, anxiety over the future. So first to note it, and then to recollect death again. How long do we have? And is it really worth thinking about the past and future? And with regret, this is such a burden for people in their lives. And to know that the Buddha said that one who dwells in guilt, thinking they'll go to hell for an action, that will drag their heart down. And in the connected discourses, one sutta called the conch blower, he says, with an act that one regrets, one should think, that was not good, and I'm not proud of what I have done. But what is done is done. even as a conch blower would make themselves heard to the north, south, east, and west. Even so, when one has developed the mind imbued and widened with loving kindness, with compassion, with sympathetic joy, and with equanimity, the four Brahmaviharas, the four states of loving kindness, then any limited action does not persist there. He has another analogy where he says, when a negative action manifests in the constricted mind, it's like a pinch of salt mixed into a glass of water, and it changes the taste to one of all salt. But if that same negative action's karma, fruit of karma, manifests in this broad mind of loving kindness, then it's like a pinch of salt mixed into the Ganges River, and it doesn't affect the taste almost at all. So he's acknowledging, yes, there are these deeds we've all done. We've all messed up. How could we have known better at the time? But that if we cultivate the broad, beautiful mind now, then those things can just dissipate. And to expect, my parents compare coming to retreat or meditation to driving in a car and suddenly stopping and all your baggage comes and hits you in the back of the head. And this is why people don't meditate, is because there's a lot of baggage waiting in the back seat. But can you have patience when you sit and let that stuff bleed out of you? Let that grieving process happen. Let the stuff come up and have patience with that process and not circle in on remorse, regret. There's wholesome remorse of knowing that an action was beneath us, but we don't, guilt, the Buddha said, is never wholesome in the sense of self-recrimination, self-flagellation. Can we have metta for ourselves for not knowing more than we knew when we knew it? Self-forgiveness is having respect for our own conditionality. How could we have known better then? And to know that we're doing okay. If you've come to this path, even if you've messed up, there's times, disciples in the Buddha's times who are mass murderers, they still could attain awakening. No one's beyond redemption. And just to have patience with that process with yourself, the healing takes a long time. But if you've come to this practice, this path, even if you've messed up in the past, even if your samadhi isn't that great, if you have right view and morality, if you have community, this is one of the most significant things that can happen in a life. You're doing okay if you've come this far. And there's more to be done, but at least have some sense of forgiveness for yourself. And as to the future, anxiety, just the acknowledgement that we can't know what's to come, that any hovering over such things is based on delusion because it's a fantasy. And what we do know is what makes us feel strong in the moment and what makes us feel anxious and weak going forward. And the strong action, the one that makes you feel integrated rather than disintegrated, this is the action we take as Buddhists. Intention is the primary element of karma. And when the storm is fiercest, when the seas are highest, we're tempted to look out and try to get everything in order, to look to the horizon and know exactly what we should do. But those are also the moments when the waves are so high that all you often can do is actually just look to the feeling in your own heart of an action. All you can do is steer into the next wave and make sure you don't capsize. So when you're really anxious and worried about the next week or month or year, can you just say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do this week, and just put one foot in front of another until the storm blows over and clarity emerges. The Buddha compared moving out of restlessness and remorse to that bowl of water ruffled by the wind, calming, and to one escaping slavery. And the fifth of skeptical doubt isn't a wholesome investigation, which the Buddha would encourage, but rather that doubt that makes us chase our tails around and around again and again. And to see that there's no way past doubt through doubt, not that kind. And so when doubt arises, to return to your main meditation object, your home base, until things calm down and you can see clearly, to label it as doubt and know that you're not going to get anywhere by engaging with it. And finally, it's really helpful to have well, you could say, what would Jesus do? But we often take a teacher and just say, what would that person do? So Longpo Pasano's Ajahn Kovilo and one of our chief teachers, and our acronym is WWLPPD. LPPD, yes. What would Longpo Pasano do? So just after a time, you can kind of imagine them, what they would say to you. And sometimes it's a very clear, stop it, something like that. And just to bring that to mind, you have good references now. And if that's not enough, then just call a teacher, talk to a Kalyanamitta, a spiritual friend, and find a way past doubt. So the Buddha said, when these 5 hindrances are given up, he said, even so, bhikkhus, a practitioner considers the mind overcome with the 5 hindrances to be a debt, a sickness, a prison, slavery, passage through desolate land. I forgot to mention that's doubt, is a passage through thief-infested wilderness. The mind free of these 5 hindrances is freedom from debt, freedom from illness, freedom from a dungeon, freedom from slavery, safe passage. The mind, when the hindrances go into abeyance, becomes glad. The glad mind becomes rapturous. The rapturous mind becomes tranquil. The tranquil mind becomes unified. The unified mind sees clearly. The clear mind gains liberation and knowledge and vision of liberation. So I don't think all of our dogs have quite that level of insight, but may we all gain it.
หันธรรมยังธรรมคาถายาสาธุปการังตถามาเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิ
So we have time for some questions or discussion. If people want to ask anything or bring up a topic, just raise your hand and we'll run a mic over to you. If you're on Zoom, you can type your question into the chat or raise your electronic hand.
Thank you for the talk, Ajahn. I had a quick question about sloth and torpor. And a lot of the examples you give have to do with meditation and keeping wakefulness during meditation. But trying to think of, I was trying to like settle into an understanding what the message is in the context of a society where we're hyper productive and often pushing ourselves, pretty hard. And not in the way of like, well, you should scale back, get more rest so you can be more mindful. Not in that sense, but how do we negotiate having a little hard time putting into words. How do we negotiate this idea of being wakeful and bright-minded with also the want to strive and push our bodies, and negotiating that between those two things? Because, obviously we can strive in meditation too. So how do we know the difference? Thank you.
Good question. It's a mistake to think of meditation as the cultivation of a technique. And Ajahn Jayasaro says it's much more accurately thought of as a life skill development session. And one of those really key life skills is, what does right effort look like to cultivate wholesome states, to abandon unwholesome states? All 4 actually, but we don't have a good picture of right effort in our culture. Just the word strive, like what a word, and there's times where it could be said in a wholesome sense, but what meditation allows is the feedback is immediate. If you're pushing too hard, then you clench up very quickly and you kink up the pipes to the inner wellspring, or you find that the aversive mindset that you've used to kind of flagellate yourself into action for much of your life, it actually burns and leads to a certain exhaustion of its own, a hangover. Even if in the moment it provides short-term energy, it's a dirty burning fuel. And simultaneously, you begin to access these deeper well springs of energy in the body, which are much cleaner burning fuel. You notice that when you approach the mind and meditation with a gentle invitation, like what sort of breath would feel good right now, something like that, that the body and mind respond naturally. And there's a lot of energy hidden there, but it's not the same sort of energy. And I'd say that same kind of lesson in right effort, it just takes a long time to learn. But as we do learn to sit every day and feel the hangovers, quote unquote, of when we apply energy unwholesomely or unskillfully or wrong effort, the lesson does sink in. And I'd say, really finding the skillful means of metta is a huge wellspring of loving, of energy. When people try to maintain mindfulness in the day with a object such as the breath, often it's a very fragile balance. And, you can really be thrown off by a difficult coworker or too much work or whatever. But loving kindness, and if you can really reframe each task, as many as you're able, in terms of how can I make this a gift to these beings? Like, how can I alleviate suffering in this moment? How can I listen carefully? Then if you can bring metta as an undergirding to all this other activity, there's this sustaining, powerful wellspring of energy ready there. And then when you sit to meditate, you don't find there's the same residue. And David Stendhal-Rost said, the cure to exhaustion isn't rest, but wholeheartedness. And I find that if there's that reframing of a lot of our activity with loving kindness and as a gift, then we can be wholehearted about almost anything, not anything, but I find that helpful. But I find that, practical means to doing that are find 10 minutes in your lunch break to have a meditation session and reestablish mindfulness. If you have a regular task at work, like going to the water cooler or filling up a pitcher of water as a waiter, can you take 3 breaths and just reestablish mindfulness at that point to just reorient? Can you have a mala bead in your pocket that you kind of recite when the time comes? So I think all those can be useful, but also acknowledge, like, having some compassion for ourselves existing in this society where, not much of society is structured to take care of our meditation practice for us. And it's just going to be hard to, like, you can expect to emerge from most days slightly traumatized in your own way, probably. So how did all that kind of land? Any thoughts? What have you found?
Oh, I guess I don't. I guess it's just really trying to understand just the teaching a little more, but thank you for that.
Yeah. And one day a week of meditation posted today really reorients and rejuvenates. So I think that is worth a lot too. And if you're at a desk, trying to get a standing or a walking desk or something like a treadmill, or just not, sitting's not great for us. So that actually really helps me access energy when I'm not sitting all the time.
I'm thinking about what you said about how we're half animal and half angel, and not exactly sure what my question is, but it's something about our relationship with the animal part. I know for myself, it's really hard to accept that part of me. And I'm wondering something about, as a person progresses, along the Eightfold Path, what happens to the animal part? Is it still there, and or how does our relationship with that part of ourselves change?
I think you're not alone in having trouble accepting it. Particularly anger. We don't realize how angry we are. I think most of us. Often at a monastery for the first few months, people will have a ton of greed come up. I thought about StarCraft too for like 3 months. I never even played that game. And then anger comes. And often that aversive phase can last about 5 years. And the person sitting next to you is responsible for half the world's suffering, and how could we not be angry? We've wanted to be happy our whole lives and we aren't. It's tragic, like we're all very sick. We're all very sick. And yeah, that's frustrating. And I'd say that like as one practices, the manifestations of those anger of the animal part become much more refined. In some sense, they're not even quote unquote an animal anymore. Maybe we're just a little bit sharp with someone in our speech, or maybe we exaggerate a little bit, but it begins to feel just as bad in that moment. Or like we sense the cloth is cleaner so that any stain really shows up still. And it can really still shake you, and not in a bad way. Like you don't want to hold on to it, but there's always the balance of the first two and the second two noble truths. The first two being dukkha and its cause, and the second two being peace, the cessation of dukkha and its path. And we can expect there to be a pretty even balance of like, the practice will be happy about 50% of the time, or like pretty onward leading. And then it's going to kind of suck for about 50% of the time. And suck in the sense that we'll have to deal with suffering and look at the darker parts of ourselves and the parts that are imperfect. And what I find really important in practice is being nimble enough to know when to make the transition, because we have no problem resting in the third and fourth noble truth. When things are peaceful and the path is moving smoothly and we're coming out of retreat, it's easy. The difficulty is when inevitably the pendulum swings and we find ourselves looking at our darker side again. And if we are insistent on remaining in that good, bright place and not looking at that, then it can be really discordant. But if we know, okay, like this is my chance to be humble, to look carefully at what's not yet beautiful in me, and not to, just to forgive myself and to kind of keep my head, just keep your head down, keep putting one foot in front of the other and expect the storm a little bit. If you manage to make that turn into the first and second noble truth again, where your duty is to comprehend dukkha, then you can move through it with grace. But that transition's hard. People never want to do it, and we always miss it, So I think that's the real secret, is knowing when to turn back into those first and second noble truth. And whenever I have a good meditation, I come out of it and I'm like, oh, tomorrow's just going to suck. like the Dharma, when your heart is strong, the Dharma will throw at you just about as much as you can take, because it knows you're strong enough for it. And just to expect that mix. Yeah. We actually have to wrap up, Sid. I'm sorry. If people have other questions, we do have Wednesday evening Zooms and these social hours after this, but just join the Wednesday evening Zooms and we can talk in more depth. I'm sorry we don't have time. Maybe we could read the chanting request list. And for those who don't know, on our website, under support, we have a page called Chanting Requests. And if there's people in your life who are struggling or going through difficulties, you can put their name there and we'll recollect them as a group.
Alfred Manning, please dedicate goodness and loving kindness for a positive rebirth. Bill and Dee, going through health difficulties, please spread care. Jared, going through tough times. Tom, upcoming medical treatment. Sonny and daughter Alex, much love and metta to both. For Sonny's safe passage and Alex's grace moving on. Tom and his wife Natalie, in hospice, please dedicate goodness and loving kindness for a joyful death. Mary Ann, having challenges with medical issues.
Do we have others who people want to bring to mind? Christina, recovering from a car accident. Gabriel, in treatment. Ginger. Who? Kent, who just passed. Sid's sister. Okay, and we're also going to add on a section of gratitude or rejoicing. Is there any rejoicing we'd like to bring into the mix as well? That's going to be sad if no one has anything. Come on. Kirk.
And then we also have William going through tough times.
William going through tough times. We're not rejoicing in that. Juanita? Melissa hosted Mitta meetups in Olympia. Sid? Thank you, Sid. I'm not going to say that one into the mic. Rejoicing in this community. Yeah, good. So we'll chant together and hold all those people in our hearts. Let's chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness, page 37. Click on the Zoom link in the chat or the book link in the Zoom chat. 37. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, freed from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure hearted. That was incredibly freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So usually just to introduce folks. If you're here, if this is your third time or less, if you've been here 3 times or less and are feeling bold, feel free to raise your hand and just introduce yourself and how you heard about us. Or if you haven't been with us for a while and want to introduce yourself again. Welcome, Claire. Go Sims. Heather's great. You should all talk to her after this along with Claire. She's also an introvert. I'm sorry. Maybe don't talk to her. No. Okay. Welcome back, Carmen. Welcome. Okay. We also have Charles visiting from Portland, and it's a good crew. So great. As most of you know, monastics in my lineage don't touch money. Everything here is freely offered. Please just take all the books in the back are free. Please take some. These flowers, actually, I can't take them back. So Juanita, if people want to take a single flower back to their shrine, is that okay? If you want to take a flower back and give it to your Buddha shrine, that's good. Maybe your romantic partner, but more maybe the Buddha first. And yeah, just as usual, it's a very special community that's forming here. The people are so sincere and caring, and just I encourage people to really take advantage of that and stick around. We have food and coffee in the back. People brought so much food. Please help eat it and get to know one another. Encourage you to talk to people you haven't spoken to before. Yeah, just rejoicing in everyone here. Those on Zoom, stick around for a Zoom coffee hour if you feel so inclined. And everyone who wants to can bow to the Buddha, but no pressure. Okay, I can wave to the Zoom folks. Good. And just a note that the week after next, we'll have Venerable Chanda from England visiting, along with Ayananda Bodhi and Seminary Junha. So it'll be a 4 monastic day. I can count. So just encouraging people, week after next, the 16th, we'll be in the main cathedral for that.
Hey, everybody. Oh, now he's back. So at this point, I can't tell if they can hear us or not, but it doesn't matter. I loved I love that little session. What? Oh, you can hear, Mary? You can't hear. Okay. Strange. Oh. Okay, can you hear me now?
Larry, you're loud and clear,
Okay.
but not necessarily for everybody.
Yeah,
I can hear you too. I just couldn't unmute, but now that's even fixed.
Yeah, I don't know why that, okay. Anyway, gets flipped.
Now.
Now.
Hi, Larry. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Wanted to say hello, but I couldn't.
I have a question regarding what he said on for it was March or May 16 that the monks will be there. I think it was May, right? He said
No,
In
March.
2
March.
weeks. Yeah.
Oh, in 2 weeks. Okay. Because there is something also in May, right? That I heard last week, right? Okay. That's why I was confused. Thank you.
Lots of visitors.
Yeah.
David, thanks for our soon-to-be host in a couple weeks, right? I think it is. That would be the 16th.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted if I heard about the 4-monk extravaganza, and I might decide to come in. I don't live too far away, but I'll
yeah.
keep the list. I'll keep the spreadsheet up to date. But feel free to call on me in a pinch.
Okay, yeah, because I've just moved much closer to Seattle, and I definitely want to head down as well. So, anyone else want to partake? It's very easy. You just become host and then let people talk, and then it's only when people can unmute themselves, and you click on participants and more, and allow participants to unmute themselves. So I thought I had seen that earlier. Anyway, but yeah, it's easy to be host.
I can do it if none of you guys are there and you want to join in person, then I can do the hosting things. No problem for me.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
On the 16th, right?
Right.
Yes.
Unless
no problem.
David. Okay. Or anytime you're here. And Mary too, how you feeling?
I'm doing fine. My surgery isn't for another month. I'm just working out like mad to get ready for it. I'm in such good shape. But I don't know, like I couldn't know how to unmute and stuff like that. I'm very technically dinosaurish. So just being here, I can do if everything goes well, but I'm not a problem solver. But I think that there are probably enough problem solvers here that if I was having trouble, somebody would be able to help me. So.
Larry, just to put a cap on it, I could come in person anytime. So you just let me know. All right. Just next weekend, I can't. I think we're good.
Okay.
I kind of have a question. It's really interesting to me how sort of randomly bumping into the Ajahn bros, both of them, at Cloud Mountain couple months ago has led me down an interesting path because having heard, from both of them now about their experience in the Thai forest tradition, I started looking up some of the people that were kind of also in the Ajahn Chah lineage here. And I didn't realize it, but I'd been inspired by Ajahn Chah's readings probably, 30 years ago when I read a quote about the glass being already broken in a collection of an anthology of wisdom literature. But anyway, I started looking at and I pulled down Ajahn Suchito, the British fellow with 2,000 talks on Dharma Seed. I think he has the record. And one of the things he said in a guided meditation recently was, he said, basically, the Buddha teaches pleasure, but not the pleasure we're thinking of. He teaches that samadhi, wholesome states of mind, are pleasurable. And while they're not to be craved, with glistening eyes and drooling, they are to be sought. And I thought that is a wonderful, and I think, Ajahn Nisabho kind of touched on this point a little bit, where the desired wholesome states of mind that we have when we're kind of free from the hindrances to some extent, and understanding how to use the 7 awakening factors is pleasurable. And I don't know if it's just the context or my puritanical upbringing, but I've always felt that there's a certain flavor in a lot of spiritual circles of, if you're walking around looking like you're on your way to your own hanging, you must be doing something really good. And if you dare to smile, this must be a sign that you're completely off the path. So I loved the way he brought that point even further in, that there are healthy, and Christina Feldman calls them wholesome longings. The longing for a loving heart, the longing for equanimity, the longing for compassion. So I just wanted to throw that out there and, see if is there a place, and even for sensual pleasure, not sensual craving, but sensual pleasure, you pick up that, even like Ajahn Chah described in his story, he picks up the glass and he says, "This is such a beautiful glass someone gave me. I take delight in it. The sun hits it and it throws a spectrum all over the place." So anyway, if that has any traction for anyone, I'd just love to hear any thoughts about how we can find a path of joy in this practice as well.
This is actually the favorite topic of Ajahn Kovilo, right? Have
Sorry?
you heard the talks from him, from Ajahn Kovilo?
No, there was one of the talks, I was confusing one from Ajahn Suchito, but just drawing a parallel to some of the points that I thought it was Ajahn. Anyway, I get them mixed up who said what sometimes. They might have both said that. I just haven't been around that long.
I think it's a beautiful question and a beautiful reflection because, the Buddha talked about wanting us to be happy, but we've got a mixed up idea about what kind of happiness is happy, really. And so these inner states of quietude, I'm listening to Dharma talks by a guy named Rob Burbea, who is on YouTube. And he encourages us to just soak in these states when we're in a samadhi or a jhana, to just let ourselves be in it. He uses the word marinate because it just, if we're looking for purification of the mind, we're not going to get it by the mind deciding what purification is. We're going to just get there by experiencing it. And then it's easier to know this is an unwholesome mind. This is a wholesome mind. And have some bases that we can go back to when we're caught. So I think this dwelling in these pleasant states, and in terms of sensual pleasures, it's like the beauty of a sense, or it just snowed here in Spokane, and it is that kind of snow where everything is frocked and it's clean and it's white. It hasn't been trashed up by traffic or rain or footprints yet, and it's just gorgeous. So to enjoy what there is, but not necessarily to say, I've got to grab it, I've got to hold it, So.
I would like to say one statement that I heard from, I don't know who said it, but I love it. It says, only the happy mind can understand suffering. And it points to the fact that there are prerequisite stages through which you have to go until you can really see suffering. Because as long as we are caught up in all of the suffering, we cannot really understand it. That's what I understand. So this cultivating happy states in the mind that do not come from the outside, but from the inside, I think is really beautiful part of meditation.
Kind of reminds me of the angel animal thing that he was talking about. Although I have so many different thoughts on that, but in this case, when we get down to the coarser animal instincts, maybe it is only the mind that has seen a little bit more happiness can say, oh, this is really uncomfortable. Yeah. Suffering.
Because why would we know that sensual pleasures are suffering? I mean, it's really hard to see, right? Because if there's no substitute, nothing else, then why would you renounce, why would you even want to renounce sensual pleasures if you hadn't even had a glimpse of what lies beyond that? I think you just can't, right?
I agree.
Really difficult.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and I think like Mary said too, it's the clinging, the grasping, and the holding on to and desiring uh, for the snow,
Yeah.
sensual pleasures. But if it's there, sure, smile, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the other word that really got me, I don't know, initially was rapture. Like, what? Rapture? To me, just sounded like way too much pleasure. I don't know. But I think I understand it now. Yeah. It's just, to me, it's like just a complete delight in the three characteristics of the moment, you know, anatta, anicca, and dukkha. The other dukkha, there's two kinds of dukkha, right? Yeah.
What do you mean there's two kinds of dukkha?
There's the dukkha that, I mean, it's the same word, but it's translated in Pali somehow differently. It's used in a different context. So the dukkha of the Four Noble Truths is kind of everyday, I think, dukkha of suffering. But the dukkha of the three characteristics is
it's a truth.
kind of like a part of nature, and it's the
Yeah.
interact, you know, that causes things to always change. And yeah.
It's a noble truth almost. Yeah.
Maybe that is the first and second arrow, Larry. Is that kind of describe it for you?
What?
Oh, the legend of the first and second arrow. Somebody is shot by an arrow. It's painful. It hurts. They get mad at how dare somebody shoot me. It's not my fault. Why did this happen to me? Things like this shouldn't happen. That's the second arrow, and the dukkha about which people say suffering, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. But that is a really, I think, an important distinction that the Buddha uses the word in two very different ways. It's a very complicated word. I just like the arrow thing because I can just see how I do it to myself all the time. You know, you stub your toe and it's like, damn it, why did you do that, David? Yeah, got them both right there.
Avi James, it's good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I like what you were saying about rapture. I'm a former monastic. I was with Ajahn Jeffrey in 1996 at Wat Metta. I like what he has to say about things like rapture, that some attachments are good and are necessary for progress along the path. They keep us, they're what keeps us coming back, this taste for the wholesome. And once sufficient progress has been made, they can be dropped. But until then, I'll enjoy the rapture.
You know, when I first started meditating, I had beautiful lights and colors and it was so wonderful. It was so easy to get entranced and just it was so pleasurable. And I really like that it just led me onward. It was like I don't have them now. But it was helpful at the time, it was helpful at the time to keep me interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. I find that prolonged periods of metta bhavana, help bring up those states. Again, if I can, do a very extensive period or session with it.
If it's not too personal, but since this is kind of a coffee hour, how did you become a monk and how did you decide to disrobe? And you probably get that a lot, but what were those factors?
So I had found out the address of the local Thai temple here and practiced there for a couple of years. It was a different order, Mahanikai order. And so it was very much a Thai cultural center. And the abbot at the time said, we'll observe you and maybe send you to Wat Thai, Los Angeles eventually. But I didn't really get a lot of instruction. And I didn't speak Thai.
Yeah.
One holiday, a gentleman noticed I was meditating and asked me about it. Then we got together and started meditating together. And then I expressed my interest in monasticism. He then said, he gathered a committee from the temple and they sent me to Wat Asokaram in Thailand, where I stayed for almost a year. Wat Asokaram is also where Ajahn Tanisaro was ordained. We had the same preceptor actually, but and I stayed there for a while. Again, not being able to speak Thai, eventually coming to Wat Metta. But I found, and I don't mean to discredit him. He is one of the foremost teachers and still very important in my life, though he doesn't know it. I started to develop a lot of anxiety, and I was just a new monk. And he was very busy. He was very busy at that time with the Thai community, writing books, translating, and the majority of the monks were Thai there. And so I just kind of broke from it. I wasn't getting to where the instruction I felt that or the one-on-one kind of with him that I would have benefited from.
I know Ajahn Nisabho talks about that being one of the loneliest times, not speaking Thai and being with all Thai speakers, how incredibly lonely that must have been for you too. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. And then particularly now when I watch on Sunday the Zoom meetings with Wat Metta, there are several American monks now, and it's just obvious that he is devoting more time to them. I'm so very happy to see that with them.
Thank you.
But that is just my experience. With modern technology, it makes it much easier to have that kind of one-on-one with teachers that you're not actually personally involved with. It's been an amazing journey for me. Definitely. Exploring new teachers. Ajahn Nisabho, Ajahn Brahmavamso is another one of my great heroes. So yes, certainly I have with modern technology been able to advance in my practice.
It's nice to hear from a householder, a monk turned householder, that the practice is strong as a householder, Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I frequently look at these stories where householders in the time of the Buddha were fully enlightened. And by even just listening to a sermon, and it makes me very hopeful, even as a householder, when listening to a very good Dhamma talk and bing, the light goes off.
Sadhu.
May it be
Sadhu.
for all of us.
Maybe so.
Yes, yes.
So where are you living now?
I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Ah, okay.
There is another new forest temple here, Dhammayut, but again, it's all Thai.
Just figure it's our karma to be householders right now. But we still know the Dharma, so we get to know the Dharma in whatever place we are. And
absolutely. And we get a chance to encourage each other as householders, there's the Bhikkhu Sangha, there's the Arya Sangha. There is the Sangha of just your group of practitioners. And while the Ajahns are our heroes, looking and seeing all of the rest of you, we can be each other's heroes as well. And thank you all just so much for being here. It's just an amazing experience, and I look so very forward to being able to fill that hole again with by communicating with other lay practitioners.
It is a gift we give each other. Yeah.
So, Mary, I just want to ask you, do you live near Seattle or do you live far away?
Well, I live closer than you do. I'm on the other side of the state, so I'm about a 4.5, 5 hour drive. I live in Washington State, but Seattle's on the Puget Sound side by the Pacific Ocean, and I'm closer to the Rockies. I'm closer to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains.
So that's why you're still having snow.
Oh, but we're not still having it, just it's been a very warm winter. Yeah. So we're very happy to see the snow. Speaking for all of Spokane.
Yeah, Jayanta and we will be going to Seattle in May, actually. We just this week we decided no, Jayanta, it was her idea, and she just went ahead and booked her flights very spontaneously.
Girl, you go.
and then I said, okay, I'm coming with you.
Oh, wonderful.
And now we are coming on the 30th of April and we'll be staying for 2 weeks. And this is during the time when Ajahn Jayasaro is in Seattle. So
what a wonderful pilgrimage. That's
we're really happy about it, right, Jayanta?
We do, yeah.
Thank you for taking that step. That's really, that flight. Yeah. I'm sorry I
was more courage, I was kind of scary to go to this big city and by my own. And I'm very happy that
no, you won't be. Oh, yes, I can understand what you're saying. Yes. with her,
Yeah,
but you won't be by yourself. If you let the Sangha know that you're coming, a Sangha member will most likely put you up in their homes and help you. So you don't have, they'll be delighted. I went over one time for the anniversary celebration, and within one day of me saying I was going to come over, I had 4 offers of places to stay. So let people know, let the Ajahn, let Nisabho know. And you will be held by Sangha. That's the beautiful thing about Sangha, wherever you are. There's usually a Sangha member with open arms. So.
Actually, we announced it Wednesday on the Zoom meeting, but we just booked an Airbnb because it's 2 of us and it's 2 weeks. We thought it's too much
It's very consuming.
for a person to host us,
So kind.
But we hope that we met a lot of people and connect with each other. And yeah, we are looking really forward to this. To be on the other side of the screen,
Yes.
I was looking today or the guests and said, oh, there we will be 8 weeks. And yes. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I have to leave now. I have
Bye,
an appointment now.
Isabel. Good
Bye.
to
Nice to
see
see
you.
everyone.
Yes.
Nice to see
I also
you.
need
Nice
to
to see
leave.
you.
Blessings.
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 Welcome,
Bye-bye.
Sabam,
See you soon.
Bye bye.
May there be every good blessing.
May there be
Thank you.
a blessing.
Bye-bye.
So just to get a little more curious, what part of Seattle is your Airbnb in?
It's North Lake.
North Lake. Okay.
North
beautiful
Lake,
area.
yes.
Yeah. Nice neighbor.
Yeah.
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 We
So
figured out it's not so far from all locations we have to go to the Bindabad and to the places where Ajahn Chayasaro go or to St. Mark's. It's quite good to go there. We can walk some places. Yeah, we will see.
Well, that sounds wonderful. That sounds, it is a nice, I think you are very close to everything there.
Yeah.
Did you say North Lake or North Gate?
Lake.
Lake. Huh.
Lake. Yeah, yeah. Will you be there in person, Larry, when Ajahn Chayasaro comes? Because
Yes.
maybe then we can meet in person, which would be really nice.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it in May.
Yeah, in May, yes.
Yeah.
You already know him, right, Larry?
Yeah, sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about no, but we met. Yeah. Yeah, great guy, right?
Yeah. One can put it like this, yeah.
I just moved to this location and the internet connection that I think I need to get a booster because anyway, I had to move. Yeah. Yeah.
So where did you move to, Larry? Where are you?
So it's called Montlake Terrace.
Montlake Terrace.
It's next to Edmonds.
Oh, okay. Okay. I used to
Linwood.
live in Seattle. That was where the children were born, and that was my first home and all of that. And then we moved around. But so I know Edmonds. Yeah, you're north of it, but beautiful water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Mary, you are somewhat connected to Ajahn Nisabho's family. Did I get this right, or?
You did. We are all from Spokane. Nisabho grew up in Spokane, and Sarah, we were all part of the same Sangha. So we were all sitting with the same teacher. And when I was in training, one of the things that happened was Sarah asked, there were 4 high schoolers, ninth graders, who wanted to learn to meditate. And so Sarah asked me if I would hold a group for them. So and Nisabho was one of them. And so we met, neither one of us can remember whether we met weekly or every other week, but all through high school for 4 years. This group was so dedicated. They just met and sat and we sat together and we discussed the Dharma. And I was labeled the teacher, but I was really just the only adult in the room, so I got that title. But we were all learning the Dharma together. Yeah. And then
What a good story.
yeah.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
Nisabho would come on retreats with us. And, you know, we were putting on retreats about 4 times a year, the Sangha was. And it was always like, oh my goodness, can a 14-year-old sit a retreat? And turns out he did quite well, you know. So, yeah. So we are. And then Sarah and Doug and I are still good friends. And I'm still good friends with Nisabho. Yeah, it's a very beautiful thing. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yeah. Nice to have someone I trust as a teacher towards the end of my life. You know, his Dharma is so solid, and it's really lovely at this age to kind of, I don't know, it has had a lot of connections. You know how they say we've all been each other's mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. Yeah. Our relationship kind of helps me see that. Yeah.
And also what amazes, and there are many amazing things about Ajahn Nisabho, of course, but one thing that amazes me most is how much merit he must have accumulated in his previous life or lives, whatever, to come in such a rebirth and to just be like he is I think this is so amazing. Yeah, there are beings in the world, they're very rare, but they have so much merit, right? And I mean, for me, this is my personal proof for rebirth, right? I mean, it's not that I've experienced it or whatever, but I mean, there must be reasons for these differences. And there are some beings who just stick out in such an amazing kind of way. Yeah, and he belongs to this group for me. Very small group, but he's one of them.
And I don't discount anything you're saying. I just want to also include us. How fortunate are we to have the merit that we can sit together and be part of a Dharma Sangha? I mean, that to me is incredible. We, you know, remember the old Sound of Music song, we must have done something right somewhere. Yeah, I feel very fortunate that we are also part of that, and to be able to be associated with somebody so bright, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, with apologies, I also have to leave. But I also
Yeah.
want to say I'm very sorry I won't be able to be over in Seattle in May with with your visit and so many nice things happening. I'll be one of the little boxes, but you'll see when you're there, all of you, it has a little bit different feel in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get to meet Juanita.
Wave to you, Mary.
Okay. Yeah, please do. Please do.
You are sitting there, Mary.
I'll look for you. I'll look for you because you've seen how the crowd is. You know,
Yeah, many
those
people.
hands. Yeah, yeah. But one of the people I would encourage you to meet is Juanita. She did the chanting.
Yeah.
It's a Thai. She probably will be around the food table. She always takes care of she's always doing something.
Yeah.
She's really.
We'll have a lot of food that day, I'm sure.
I'm sorry?
A lot of food that day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, no one will
with all
grow
the
hungry.
and everything, right? Yeah. Well, be well. I wish you all well.
Too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can wave to me now.
You.
Okay, Larry,
Okay.
then maybe we should wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
John didn't
get some
say
sleep.
anything, but
Yeah. John just moved, so I don't know. He may be in the process of unpacking right now.
Okay, maybe he's just listening a little bit in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will go to bed now.
Yes, it's late there. You should. And we'll see you. Yeah, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, but latest
Yes.
in person in May.
Are you going to stay a while? A week or so?
2 weeks,
Oh,
actually.
good. Excellent.
Yeah, so we will be there for 2 Saturdays. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we do. 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then. Guys, take care of yourself.
Okay, Larry, have a good weekend. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye.